God, help me shine like stars up in the universe that's yours and not mine, and fill me with your light so that the darkness will hide. Oh God. God, help me to give everything to you.
All right.
That I'm unable.
How are we doing this evening? Good? All right. Let's see. Where should we start? It's going to start with the Psalms 119. Would you take your Bibles and go there? Psalm 119. I'll give you something tonight that I use. It's a tool that I use. I would say probably mostly every single day that I use in my prayer life. It's an acronym that helps me sort of list things that I can pray for. And I often pray about my relationship with the Lord. And the more that I study the Bible and the closer that I get with the Lord, the more that I believe me living the Christian life is less about me doing it, and it's more about Him doing it through me. So upon that realization, or that enlightening, or that whatever you want to call it, I hear music. Can you turn that all the way down, Noah? Otherwise I get distracted. I can still hear it. Can you mute it? I still hear it going. Okay. So the more that I realize that the Christian life is less about me living it and more about God living it through me. And so with that in my mind, I'm still hearing that music. I'm sorry, I can hear it, probably not. Can you just turn off all the music, Noah? Just turn it all down, or mute everything, or... what is that? Oh, forgive me. It's my phone. Sorry, Noah. I know, I should have just kept it quiet. And crazy music. Where was I even now? It's like, why can I hear this so loud and nobody else seems to? As if Noah doesn't have enough bugs in the system back there. So yeah, this is a tool that I use, that I pray for myself, and upon realizing that it's not about me living the Christian life, it's about God living it through me, and me just yielding is really what it's about. Just turning everything over to him. And I realize that when I start getting into problems, it's in areas that I have not yielded to him, right? And in areas that I decide or choose to just yield to him and stop trying to press through, stop trying to open that door, let him open that door, let him press through. Instead of me drawing attention to things that I do, let him draw attention to things that I do. Let him give me glory. Do you understand what I mean by that? Let him give me the credit if he chooses to, and if not, then he doesn't want me to have that. Instead of me going around telling everybody what I've done or boasting about what I've done. It seems to work out better that way. And in areas that I yield to him, those are areas that I become really strong in those areas. And so tonight, these are basically prayers out of Psalms that I want to give you. And I'm going to give them to you in an acronym. And I've taught this before. It's been a couple years. But it's a good reminder because I use these every day in my relationship with the Lord, just for asking the Lord to help me walk with him. That's really what it's all about. And then at the end of this, what I'm going to do is have Noah play a song that most of us, I think, are familiar with, that is actually prayers out of Psalms, asking God to help me live that in my life. So I want to do that, and then what I want to do here tonight is when I'm done walking through these with you, I want us all to gather up here again like we did last Wednesday, and let's just pray those things for ourselves and pray those things for each other. And these are even things that I pray for our church as a whole. So I give these to you tonight, and two of them are in Psalms 119, and one of them's in Psalm 86, and the other one's in Psalm 90, but there's four of them. And you could probably go through Psalms and find more and find a better acronym or whatever you want to do. But I guess the idea here is that you can use the Psalms to really allow David through the Psalms to teach you how to pray, not only for things, but yourself. David often focused on himself and his relationship with the Lord as he prayed. So I'm going to give these to you. There's four of them. The acronym is IOU. That helps me to remember because we all know about IOU, right? Okay, but also add an S on there, IOUS, so IOUs, all right? And that helps me because now I can just, in the morning, and like I know these by heart because I do them. I don't do them every day in my mind as if they are vain repetitions, but they are just reminders for me that, I can pray for this. And sometimes it leads me off in this direction to pray for something specific or in another direction. These aren't just me repeating the same thing over and over. I don't want to give you that idea. But they give me a structure so that I can pray in the morning when I start my day, and I begin with talking to the Lord about these things. And where it ends up, who knows? It all depends on what's going on in my mind that day or what's going on events-wise. But take your Bibles and go to Psalm 119, and I want to start off in verse number 36. And David says this in verse number 36. He says, "Incline my heart unto thy testimonies and not to covetousness." So here David is praying to the Lord, and he's asking the Lord to incline my heart to your testimonies, Lord. Now I want you to think about that just for a minute. Well, that word incline basically means a direction, okay, a direction of thought. You've heard people say this before. Well, I'm inclined to believe this, or I'm inclined to believe that. It means that's the direction that they're pointing, that they're heading. I'm inclined this way, or I'm inclined that way. So when David says, incline my heart, he's really saying, Lord, direct my heart toward you and toward your testimonies. Okay? Now that's a good thing to pray any time in any prayer. This is something that I've found effective in my life, is to say, Lord, I need you to incline my heart today. I need you to direct my heart. Remember, the Lord directs the heart of the king, he says, like the rivers of water. The Lord gives us the desires of our hearts, meaning that he puts a desire in our hearts. That's what I think that passage means. I don't think he gives us what we want. I think that's a very human-centric interpretation of that passage. I think when he says, the Lord shall give you the desires of your heart, it means he's going to place those desires to do his will in you. So he does have an effect on your heart. He can, if you yield your heart to him, he can direct it. He can place desires in there. He can incline it. Now, this is something that I think is interesting about David. We often think, oh, he's a man after God's own heart, right? He's the king. He's David. And here David says, incline my heart unto thy testimonies. Think about what that means in the flip if you invert that. It really means he's saying, my heart isn't inclined that way right now, but I want it to be, right? Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but sometimes I experience that where I know what the Lord wants and I know what I want. And I'm inclined to, is this thing's done? And did it go down or something? It's weird. No, is it? Okay. Maybe it's just me then. I'm already hearing music and other things. David essentially is saying, my heart isn't inclined that way. I experience that. There's times when I know what the Lord wants, and then there's times when I know what I want. And those two don't always match, right? And so it's good for us to stop and say, Lord, I know that right now my desires are not inclined with you, right? My thoughts aren't inclined with your thoughts. What I talk about isn't inclined with what you talk about. So, Lord, please take my heart and incline it to your testimonies. Direct it toward that way. And you'd be amazed at how God answers those prayers when you yield that to him. Okay, so there's your eye. It's inclined, right? Now I want you to flip over to verse number 18. And in Psalm 119 and verse number 18, he gives us the O to this acronym. He says, open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law. Okay? Now, this is interesting as well because this is something that I often pray for me. I crave the Lord to show me things out of his word. And I believe that he's faithful to do that. I crave for him to help me understand his word, for him to show me amazing things. The Lord just shown me so many things about his word over the years that just amaze me. I mean, even the thing about the cleansing of the temple, how he went in once, he went in twice, and he went back a third time, just like the priest did when they're cleansing a house of leprosy or disease in the Old Testament. I mean, those are the types of things that God will reveal to you or to any heart if they're seeking it, right? I'm inclined to believe that human nature is going to seek whatever they find. If they are seeking negativity, they're going to find it. If their whole outlook and what they're seeking is negative, well, there's plenty of that. You're going to find that. If you're looking for trouble, you're going to find it, right? That's what my mom always told me growing up. And I think that's true for anything, right? Any area of life. If you're seeking success, if you really want success, you're going to find it somewhere, right? Same is true with God. God's in that too. If you're seeking the Lord, you're going to find him. If you're seeking him. So the human nature or human tendency is such that it's so powerful, it's going to find whatever it sets his heart to seek after. And I believe God set that up in our lives as a tool for us so that when we choose to seek after God, we're going to find him. And so when you have a heart like that and you're praying that way and you're saying, God, I'm not satisfied with what I'm seeing in your law or your word, show me more. Show me things. And that word, you've heard me talk about this before, in verse number 18, he says, "Open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of thy law." Listen, he's going to show you things out of the word and out of his law, and he might just show you things and reveal things to you, but be prepared for this. Wondrous things means you can't explain it, right? You don't have a full grasp on that, but God's going to show it to you. What does wondrous mean? Wonder means I'm wondering how he does that. I'm wondering what that means. I'm wondering the significance of it. It means I can't explain it, so I'm wondering. Okay? So when David says this, he's not saying, "Oh, Lord, show me cool things that I can understand all of your word and understand how everything works." That's not what he's praying. What he's praying is, "Lord, show me things out of your word that make me say, I don't understand. I can't understand that. That's way beyond my comprehension. Show me wondrous things out of thy law." You'd be amazed at how faithful God is to answer that. There's things that he's shown me out of his word that I just wonder at. I can't explain it, right? Even go back to the example of that I just gave you about cleansing the temple. How does somebody write that 5,000 years before Christ shows up and he does that? Right? How does God make all of those circumstances and events fall into place right when they need to, and yet every single person on this planet has their own free will to do whatever they want, and their will is never impeded upon or infringed upon, and yet God is using all of that to work his will, and it plays out exactly how he wants it to. I can't explain that. I'm wondering at that. So like the thing that God showed me that put some cool stuff together has caused me to wonder more. It's almost like the more that God shows me out of his word, the less I realize I know about him and his word. Not the more I know him. I would say this: I know less today about God than I did 20, 25 years ago when I first started studying his word and pastoring. I know less. It's because my scope of God has gotten so much larger and bigger. I realize the percentage of my knowledge is that much smaller. Okay? And that makes me wonder at God, like, wow, this is amazing, right? There's things that God reveals in his word. These are hard things. God used sin to get Christ to the cross, right? They didn't follow the law in convicting Christ. They broke the law in convicting him. They had a trial at night. You can't do that according to the Levitical law, but they did it. They broke the law. That's sin. That was part of bringing Christ to the cross. Think about all the lies that were told to bring Christ to the cross, right? Think about all the gossip and murmuring, those things that were done to bring Christ, all the evil and sin that were committed to bring, I don't mean to bring him to the cross so he could die for those sins. I mean, those sins were committed, and they were steps in the process of Christ going to the cross so that he would get to the cross and be crucified. To me, you say, explain that. I thought God can't cause people to sin. I know that's what his word says, right? But yet people sinned, and each was a step to the, God can't tempt people with evil. I get that. I know that. I believe that. That's what his word says. But I can't explain all of that. Right? So the more that I study his word, the more that I realize I don't know. I know a whole lot less than I did 20 years ago. So, but it helps to say, Lord, open mine eyes to behold wondrous things, right? Because the more wonder that you have about God, the bigger he gets. Like I don't have to worry about those things that I just explained to you because he's so big. I know he's got it under control, right? So to me, the minutia of those things really becomes less important, right? So, like I said, I use this as a tool almost every day. Incline my heart to thy testimonies. Open my eyes to see wondrous things. Okay? Here's the other one in Psalm 86 in verse number 11. And I don't know about you, I like simple. So IOUS is simple. I can sit down, I can pray, I can get on my knees, and that goes with me wherever I go. Hey, guess what? You could take my Bible from me and lock me up in a dungeon, okay? And I would still have IOUS, and I would know what those verses say, and I could pray those every single day. You can't take that away from me once you have that, okay? So I like simple. Psalm 86 in verse number 11. Let's see, let me get to the right page here. He says, teach me thy way, O Lord. I will walk in thy truth. Unite my heart to fear thy name. Everybody needs a healthy dose of the fear of the Lord. And what he says here, David says, unite my heart to fear your name. Now again, we go back to, well, what is the antithesis of that mean? It means maybe David wasn't feeling united with the Lord. Maybe he wasn't united in that fear of the Lord's name. So what does he do? Does he just get up and say, well, I need to just do it? No, he goes to the Lord and he says, Lord, help me with this. Right? See, I spent, you've heard me say this many times before. I spent half of my ministry trying to do things myself. And now I'm on the back half of my ministry and I'm going like this. I'm going, you know what? That was really stupid and foolish. And a lot of times it got me in trouble. And a lot of times I got some great stuff done for the Lord. And I think now, wow, what more could I have got done for the Lord if I would have yielded to him instead of trying to do it in me? And so it's like we go to the Lord and say, Lord, I need you to do this. But I spent most of the first half of my ministry saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to press on, I'm going to do better tomorrow, I'm going to be stronger, I'm going to be wiser, I'm going to be smarter. And all doing it for the Lord. I think my motives were good, but my understanding was darkened, like Paul says. And now my understanding is more like, okay, if I need to be more wise, then God, give me wisdom. Lord, if I'm not fearing your name, Lord, please unite my heart to fear your name. Fear doesn't mean you're afraid either. Doesn't mean you're afraid of God, right? I don't like that. I don't think that that's a good relationship to have, of being afraid of somebody. Fear is different, okay? Being afraid is what happens after you sin, like Adam and Eve in the garden. They sinned, and what does it say? They were afraid when God came in the garden, right? So they hid. That's not fear. Fear is not being afraid, okay? Fear is a respect that prevents you from getting into sin, right? The Bible, Proverbs, talks about that fear is preventative. It prevents us from getting into sin. But he says here, unite my heart to fear your name, right? To walk in that fear. We need God's help to do that even, It amazes me how many times now when I read the Bible and read the New Testament, Paul is not telling the Christians to live a more Christian life or live a better life or live a more spiritual life. If you read what he wrote very carefully, you'll quickly understand he was telling the Christians of that day, ask God, rely on God, trust in the Lord to help you do those things, right? That's what he's trying to get them to. And religion kind of takes that out. Religions of all names and brands, they kind of take that out and replace it with pride and say, you can do it, or you should do it, right? And I think that's a lie, because what that does is it causes us to live lives that are unsustainable, unsustainable. And what that does too is it breeds a mentality in which you're one way at church and around Christian people, and then behind closed doors you're a different way. Because you got to put on a front so that everybody thinks you're doing what's right. And I don't like that. I like to just be, look, if you're struggling, let's struggle together, right? Where this Sunday we're going to be talking about empathy and compassion. That's what compassion is struggling together. It's feeling that pain together. And if you don't have the capacity for compassion, which every Christian should, and we'll talk about how to strengthen that capacity on Sunday, if you don't have that ability to experience pain with other people and feel their pain in a very real way, you're really limiting your ability to impact people. Because you've built a wall, you've built a fortress, and a fortress doesn't have the capacity to reach out. They only have a capacity to protect and stand behind that wall. So you're over there, I'm over here, my wall is here, and that it looks like a bad thing you're going through, and that's bad, and boy, that I feel for you, right? But you're not gonna connect with them on that pain. Well, that is, you're gonna limit yourself on what you can do and how you can impact people's lives until you're ready, really ready to push in. I was talking to some friends of mine today at a meeting, and we were talking about being vulnerable with people. And really, vulnerability is a way that two people or different groups of people connect with each other. Is that when you show vulnerability, then guess what? You're connected to that person. Or when they show it, you're connected to them. Or when you show it, they're connected to you. We were just talking about the connection that happens between two people when one or both of them are vulnerable. But the idea there is none of us want to be vulnerable because we feel like we're putting ourselves in a compromised state, right? Because now you've got one on me, or now I'm open and now I can get hurt. And, all of those things like cause us to be vulnerable, but you open yourself up and that's when the devil attacks. But we still need to be vulnerable because we need to connect with people. I mean, just think about how real our church would be if we all were vulnerable and nobody walked into our church with an idea like, I got to put on a show, I got to pretend to be something I'm not, I have to put up a wall to protect myself. I mean, just imagine the relationships that we'd have in this church if we all just said, hey, opened ourselves up and be vulnerable. But anyway, all of that aside, he says, unite my heart to fear your name. He prayed that. And the idea there is that, well, he was praying that because maybe he didn't always feel that. So here's the last one in Psalm 90 in verse number 14. Okay, like I said, these are real easy. Even if I asked you right now what's the acronym, you could probably tell me what it means. Incline, open, unite. And here's the last one. This is the S on it. And verse number 14. He says, "Oh, satisfy us early with thy mercy, that," I lost my place, "that we may rejoice and be glad all our days." He says, satisfy us early. Right? He says, satisfy us early with thy mercy. Basically, what David is saying here is, help me to be satisfied in you. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Think of all of the things that you and I get ourselves in trouble trying to be satisfied from something other than God. Okay? Basically, everything can really go back to that. There's people who are on drugs right now, have addiction to drugs. What is that? They are trying to be satisfied. They're trying to find satisfaction in something other than God. And they've learned that they can get it for a time, but it only lasts for a short period of time. But they haven't learned how to get it from God, so they just keep going back. Remember we talked about getting good with bad tools? Remember how I talked about anger? People get really good with anger. They get people to do what they want to do with anger. Anybody ever work for an angry boss? Okay, angry person. They just responded in anger. Everything was angry, right? Okay, that is a sign of a person who has learned how to get people to do what they want with anger. Okay? Now, look, it works for them. They've gotten good with that bad tool, right? But the problem is that it's not a good tool because it injures people, right? Because you get mad, and when you get mad, what happens? You say other things. You say things you don't mean. You come across in ways you didn't mean to come across, right? And so it ends up injuring people around you, and then what happens? They're like, I ain't working for that guy anymore. I'm out of here. Or that lady anymore. I'm out of here. So they lose people, and they never really get quality employees around them because they're constantly pushing people in and out the door. That's just one example, okay? You get really good with bad tools, right? Well, that's the same thing with satisfaction. People are trying to find that satisfaction in other things other than God. And they may have gotten really good with it. They have basically structured their life around the temporary satisfaction that comes with whatever they're getting it from. They get it for a little while, and then that satisfaction goes away, and they need a little more, and they need a little more, and they need a little more. The Christian life is more about learning how to get that satisfaction from God instead of these other things. Okay? Some people try to get their satisfaction from a spouse. Right? And although that's a good place, you don't want to be dissatisfied with your spouse, right? You got to be careful that you're not seeking your ultimate satisfaction from your spouse, that you're seeking it from the Lord. Okay? That's something that I've had to go through people in marriage counseling with is, you're really trying to get your satisfaction from your spouse. You need to love your spouse, don't get me wrong, but your satisfaction really needs to come from the Lord, right? And then what happens when you connect with your spouse spiritually? Well, then you both together as one are seeking to be satisfied from the Lord. And that's a whole nother level, right? There's a whole nother level there. What David here is saying is, I want to be satisfied by you. Help me, okay? He's not saying, well, then I just need to wake up and learn how to be satisfied. He's saying, Lord, help me. I want to be satisfied by you. And again, you flip these around and you say, well, maybe there's part of him that wasn't being satisfied with the Lord, so he's asking the Lord for help. It's okay to be open and vulnerable with the Lord and say, God, I'm not feeling satisfied from you right now. I know that's not you. I know that's something wrong with me. Help me to be satisfied by you and your mercy, right? He says it early. Some people say that means in the morning. Some people say, well, that means early in life. I say, how about both? Let's do it in the morning to start our day right, and let's do it early in our lives. We certainly have a lot less baggage if we learned at a young age to get our satisfaction from the Lord. People get themselves into all kinds of trouble because they're trying to get satisfaction in other places. My suspicion is that David probably knew all about trying to get satisfaction in other places, right? He's walking by his window, look out his window, what does he see? Beautiful Bathsheba out on the rooftop, right? Okay, what's he trying to do? He's trying to get satisfaction somewhere else other than God, and he took a misstep, and he knows all about that. Yeah, I did that. I tried to look for satisfaction, and it only brought me trouble. Okay, so David's got experience in this, but these are good prayers to say. The other thing, too, with it is lots of studies are out now. Whatever you start your day with, okay, whatever you start your day with, that's really the direction that your mind is going to head for the rest of the day. They do brain studies, and they find that in the first 15 minutes of you waking up really sets the tone of your thinking for the rest of the day, okay? Now, I want you to think about that. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you do? Anyone? You want to go back to bed. What's the first thing that you do when you wake up? Don't you grab for this first thing? Come on. If you're honest, some of you don't, right? Within the first 15 minutes of you waking up, do you not have this in your hand? Here, let me tell you the dangers of this, okay? You go on Facebook, and what happens? Oh, they're such a nice couple. Beautiful. They're perfect. I'm not. Right? Oh, wow, look at their family. They're all sitting there. They're by the lake. Oh, and they all are dressed alike. Oh, what a perfect family they are. My family's not like that. We're not perfect like that. Right? Oh, look at the car they just bought. Oh, wow. They're doing really good at their job. I can't afford a car like that. Do you know that Facebook does that to your mind? You got to be careful. I try to stay away from it. My phone's flashing at me. I try to stay away from it. I post things on there every once in a while. I usually give myself about 5 or 10 minutes on Facebook every day, and then I'm out. Okay? Because you know what happens? I start looking at everybody else's stuff, and it starts messing with my mind. And by the end of that, all of a sudden, I'm like down low because my life's not as good as their life. Okay? You've heard me say this before. Everybody puts their edited life on Facebook, right? How many times do you think about somebody posting a picture of them smiling with their spouse and now they're fighting with them? You know, nobody posts the fight that they have, right? Unless it's a funny TikTok or something. I was watching a couple today, and right in the restaurant, she stands up and takes a drink and throws it in her boyfriend or husband's face, and he, he went everywhere, and he just turned to the guy and he's like, "Sorry." It was fun. It was actually really funny, you know. So unless it's a funny TikTok, you don't do that. But if you're like anybody else, we don't post the bad stuff, only the good stuff. Do you know that suicide rates are increasing among millennials, and a lot of that now is being attributed to social media? You know that they just had a hearing in Congress over that very thing, the effects of social media on the millennial generation and how it's affecting them. And the numbers of depression have never been worse among millennials. And they're actually comparing social media to cigarettes now. And they're saying, just like back in the day when the cigarette companies were hiding the ill effects of nicotine and carcinogens, and they were hiding that stuff to sell their product. They just had a former executive from Facebook testify to Congress and say that she had sent and received emails and been on chains where the conversations among the executives were, we know this is having a negative effect on the millennials. How do we hide that? How do we cover that up? And she testified in front of Congress. And I think it was Blumenthal from here. He really latched onto that, and he started digging and doing all kinds of research on that very thing. Look, I'm just saying, whether you like Blumenthal or not doesn't matter. I'm just saying, it has an effect on people's thinking. And I don't think it's just millennials either, right? Because I'm not a millennial, and it has an effect on my thinking. So I guess what I'm saying is you reach for this, and the first 15 minutes of your day starts out with, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I don't have a job like them, I don't have a spouse like them, I don't have a family like them. And all of a sudden, your whole rest of your day is set in that direction, right? Okay? David's saying here, wake up early in the morning, and first thing you say is, Lord, right? Satisfy me. Help me to be satisfied with you today, right? Whatever you are bringing to my life, help me to be satisfied. And help me, Lord, when I feel like the urge to be satisfied with something else, help me to bring my mind around to be satisfied with you. Look, these are 4 powerful prayers that you can pray that David prayed. Now, you might go through Psalms, you might find a whole other set for you. Great, go do that. Go do that for you. I'm just saying, you know what? This is easy for me, IOUS. I can get on my knees. I don't need to look at a sheet of paper. I don't need to be bothered with my phone. I don't need to look at any notes. I just know, Lord, incline my heart to thy testimonies. Open my eyes to the things, wondrous things out of your word. Unite my heart, right? And help me to be satisfied with you. And of course, as I'm praying, I elaborate on those things, and get more specific. But this gives me a good structure to start off with. Because you can write that down, and just pray when you get into your prayer closet and you start talking to the Lord. That's a great start. And a lot of times, what I find is I end up starting this or praying this through, and I just I don't know if it's praying in the Spirit or what, but you just kind of let the Lord lead you in your prayer life and lay different things. And by the time I'm done praying, I'm way off over here. Nothing to do with these, but this just gives me a good start and a good skeleton to get going on. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's take like 15 minutes here, and I'm gonna have Noah play the song, and the song is called "Help Me to Be," and it's by Cloverton. And it's a good song, and it's really just him singing about different things out of the Psalms. You can find a lot of the things that he prays for in this song. You can find it in the Psalms, but just listen to it and hear it. I think it's a really good song. So go ahead, Noah. Hey Noah, wait, stop everything. We got two songs going on, and I don't think it's my phone playing again. There's two. This isn't the right.
God, help me to see.
There you go.
That everything was good when you created all things. Now let me see with those same eyes that created me. Oh God. Oh God. God, help me believe when everything around me points to uncertainty. Remind me of the hope of youth that's living in me. Oh God. And God, help me shine like stars up in the universe that's yours and not mine, and fill me with your light so that the darkness will hide. Oh God.
So it's just a good song to remind us to there's nothing like praying for the Lord to help us with the things we need help of. So he goes to the Lord and he asks him to, help me to not be afraid. Help me to be a good witness. Help me to go forth in your power and your strength. It's a good song that reminds me, hey, when I'm struggling with something, I can go to the Lord. I don't need to fix it. I need to go to the Lord and ask him just to help me with that. So write down the IOUS. It's a good reminder. It's a good prayer structure for you and a good way to pray. So let's do this. Let's take a couple minutes tonight, and I want to gather up with some people that you either came here with or your family, or if somebody's sitting alone, invite them into your group, and let's just come up to the front. Sometimes it does us good to get out of our chair, reminds us that church isn't coming and sitting in a pew, and let's pray up here at the altar for these things. IOUS. Let's ask the Lord to help us. So everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. In order to move up here, you have to stand up. Unless you can scoot on your chair, that you could do that too. But let's pray together and ask the Lord to incline my heart to your testimonies and help us. Open our eyes to see wondrous things out of your word. Help us, Lord. Unite our heart to you. And Lord, I want you to be my satisfaction. All right? So let's pray these things tonight and take a few minutes here just to pray. Seek the Lord.